everybody, and welcome back to Empire Soccer Report. I'm James Birle, joined by a new guest today, someone who, if you follow New York Red Bulls, I'm sure you've seen on Seeing Red. It's Michael Battista of New York Sports Nation. Happy to have a good friend from the press room joining me today. Michael, how's it going, man?
It's going well. It's going well. We're only 2 months away a month away from the season starting, so we're already back in the saddle essentially. So it's nice.
Yeah, one of the shortest off seasons ever is Major League Soccer, and we're in the swing of it. The Red Bulls continuing to stay busy. Julian de Guzman at the forefront of some big moves. Another one that, was speculated for a little while, but was officially confirmed, and that is the departure of homegrown central midfielder Daniel Edelman. We're going to get right into it, Michael, because there's quite a bit of news to talk about. Daniel Edelman's going to St. Louis City FC for $700,000 in GAM. A bit of a low return in terms of Edelman's value, but it's an important deal that needs to be made. More GAM freed up by Julian de Guzman. Again, writing was on the wall with Edelman for a little while, but he joins a growing list of players leaving the club. Your initial reactions, Mike, to the Edelman news?
So yeah, just to confirm, it's not official yet. Like, no team has officially said it, but who knows? Maybe by the time this podcast comes out, like, it's announced. Yeah, writing's on the wall. Writing's been on the wall because of all the house cleaning. He wasn't the same as Peter Stroud in that sense, but you could tell that, like, last year was a step back for him the same way it was a step back for Stroud. Some of that was his own doing. Some of that was the team not having a cohesive midfield. Overall, he almost is like Lewis Morgan in the sense that if you had sold him at the end of last year, you would have gotten a lot more for him, but hindsight's 2020. So it's smart to sell him because I feel like if he's not going to work in this system and he's valuable, it makes sense to see what you can get for him. And he's still young. He's got a US he hasn't been capped by the US men's national team yet, I don't believe. But he's up and rising. He could be on that national team come 2027, come after the World Cup. So, he's someone to watch out for. And St. Louis, we all know St. Louis is a team where they're very good with their youth team. Like St. Louis City 2 is one of the best teams in MLS Next Pro. So, they know how to develop youth players. So if they see something in Edelman, I'm not surprised.
One American soccer hotbed to another, jumping from New Jersey to St. Louis, Missouri. Edelman's going to have a pretty good soccer resume in terms of where he's lived in the country. But, it's another goodbye to a homegrown favorite for New York. But like you mentioned, probably would have had a bigger value at the end of 2024. And that's because we didn't really see that continued growth from Edelman over the past few years. While he burst onto the scene in 2022 and became a regular in 2023, he's very good at the things that he's good at: covering ground, retrieving possession, and he always gave 110% every time. I mean, he's a homegrown from Warren, New Jersey, grew up, within 30 miles of the stadium. Is someone who understood what it meant to be on this team. But when a team doesn't make the playoffs and you need to go through what was honestly a poorly constructed roster under Jochen Schneider, you got to make changes. And this is another important one. Like Peter Stroud, he's a homegrown central midfielder who's sent away from the club. But Edelman, for me, it was the stagnation of his progression that kind of made this move one that makes sense to me. And it's a player who I know was always great with the media, Michael. We can attest to that. A player who, always gave everything for the team, a homegrown guy who will have a great career ahead of him with St. Louis City, a team that's never really had like an out-and-out number 6. So this is going to be an important find for them. I think he's going to be a player who plays a huge chunk of minutes for St. Louis City. Not that he will be a guy that's going to totally change the dimension of that team. But he's a guy who's got a great career as a good MLS midfielder. Had interest from overseas previously in his career. I think, unfortunately, played himself out of those conversations, and a move to within MLS seemed the most likely. And he carries value within the league. Red Bull continuing to stockpile some GAM. We'll see if they add any more players to the midfield, because right now in the holding midfield ranks, it's Edelman, it's Ronald Donkor, it's no longer Edelman, it's now just Ronald Donkor, Gustav Berggren, and we'll see what type of jump Audrey Mehmeti makes from Red Bulls too. I liken this trade a little bit back to 2016, 2017. Dax McCarty, a fan favorite, the captain, he was sent away to make some room for a guy named Tyler Adams, who was fresh off of a USL championship with Red Bulls too. Could this be a similar thing, you think, Michael, where Audrey Mehmeti becomes the heir apparent to the number 6 position? And, if Edelman's in the way, you kind of got to get rid of him for Mehmeti to flourish. Do you see the similarities?
I I don't like I don't want to make that prediction because I think Mehmeti he's definitely first team bound. Like he's definitely going to go there. I don't know if it's making room for him in a sense or if it was just trying to continue to clear house as you already are. It makes sense if that's the case, but at the end of the day, too, with Edelman, you could play both of them, and with Mehmeti, we don't know how he's going to act on a D1 roster. And I understand you brought up the comparison to was Tyler Adams.
McCarty, Tyler Adams, yeah.
Sorry, yeah, you brought up those the USL guys, and they have talked about using more MLS Next Pro players, so it makes sense. But I don't know if it was just clearing room for him.
I kind of see it the same way because while I mean the way it's shaped out, it kind of seems like the writing's on the wall for Mehmeti to step into that role. Do I think he'll be the starter come day one of the 2026 MLS season? Probably not. I think he'll be, more regular with the first team, but I don't think he'll have completely earned a starting role or will play in every game. I think we may see another signing come in that role. It was rumored that the Red Bulls were interested in a player like Luca De La Torre, but he went and signed for Charlotte. There were rumblings that if Gianluca Busio is not signing an extension with Venezia, that maybe the Red Bulls would be a team in MLS that's interested in him. Again, that's just conjecture and we don't know. But for now, it seems like the Red Bulls are a little bit thin in that position specifically, especially with the departure of Edelman. We'll see what type of role Mehmeti takes up in 2026. As for another position where things look a little bit thin is the center back position. Another move that was speculated for a little while, but this one is fully official, has been announced by the team, and that's Robert Voloder, the former Sporting Kansas City center back, free agent, 24 years old, and importantly, with a green card, signs for the Red Bulls. He'll be a domestic counting center back, and he joins Noah Ayla and Tim Parker as the lone center backs rostered to the team right now. And according to Joe Pantorno of AM New York, shout out to Joe, it looks like he's going to be competing for a starting job next to Noah Ayla. Mike, I'm not sure how much you've seen of Voloder. I mean, it's hard to keep up with foreign leagues like the MLS Western Conference. I know for me at least, I don't always get to see teams like Sporting KC, but a new center back, a like-for-like replacement for Alexander Hack, it seems, in terms of a left-footed, stay-at-home center back who's primarily known for his ability on the ball. Kind of reads similar to Ayla, and I think will fit into what Michael Bradley wants to do pretty nicely. Just your thoughts on this new center back, and do you think that maybe we're going to see an additional center back signing so they can complete the depth here?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I'll say yeah, I don't follow. He was all the funny thing with him is that he was on Sporting Kansas City as Peter Vermees was going downhill.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm not going to say that that means nothing. I'll just say that it's tough to gauge. You got to know what you're dealing with here. And like Peter Vermees, like, was not the same between 2021 or two and 2025. So, I really need to catch up on it now. In terms of we saw what happened with center back last year. We saw what happened with losing a center back right after MLS Cup. We just had Sean Nealis. We had to kind of bring in Tim Parker, bring in not bring in, but use Noah more. Now we're down Sean Nealis, and we're trying to find our defense again. So bring in someone who not just knows the league and knows what makes an MLS defense, but is also respectably young. He's like 24. He's got experience. He's got experience both overseas, but more importantly in MLS. It's good. The whole point about him battling Tim Parker, yeah, if you don't beat Tim Parker for the starting job, you shouldn't be on this team. I love Tim Parker. I think he's a great player. I think he's a great influence on the roster, but he should not be starting as center back for the Red Bull New York in 2026.
I see it the same way because for me, Parker is inheriting the role that Sean Nealis is leaving behind. And last season, what that role for Sean Nealis was, he was the first center back off the bench because Tim Parker took that job from him. So I see Tim Parker as a depth piece, a guy that, if there's an injury and he has to start a game, you can rely on him. But he's really more of a veteran presence, someone that you can rely off the bench to shore out wins if you have a lead late in a game. I think he's the veteran presence within that locker room that as a team gets a bit younger, even already a young team gets even younger, that's going to be invaluable. And if you see him and you compare him next to Sean Nealis and you kind of get the same from each of those guys, you're going to go with the cheaper one, and that's Parker. So I do agree that if Voloder can't beat out Parker for the starting position, well, then he doesn't deserve to start in Major League Soccer. That's just patently true. I see him somewhat, at least profile wise, and this depends on how Michael Bradley wants this team to operate. I see him kind of as the understudy to Ayla, as Ayla is your ball playing center back who's going to organize your back line, who's going to take care of it in possession and help move the team forward when they do have the ball. I kind of see Voloder has most of those same strengths, and Ayla, because he's so good with both feet, often lines up as the left side of center back, even though he's right-footed. I see Voloder as kind of a good option behind him. And then you need to find a more physical presence center back to start on the right that can be ahead of Tim Parker. We'll see if that's what Red Bull tries to do, if that's what Julian de Guzman wants. But it seems as though Voloder is going to be given a shot to start. And if he cannot get in front of Tim Parker in the lineup, I think that begs the question is, has this team gotten a good enough defense to go into the season? Because I love Tim Parker too, Mike. Do I think he should be a week in, week out starter in Major League Soccer at this point in his career? Probably not. Do I think he earned the minutes that Sean Nealis vacated at the end of 2025? Yeah, I do. But I still think that there is room to improve at center back. Maybe Dylan Nealis and Justin Che will pick up some minutes at center back because both of those guys have naturally right backs, but have played center back before. Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with you there, Mike, about Voloder and again, not a player we've seen a whole lot of personally, but one who was on a fledgling Sporting Kansas City team that is a bit of a mess right now, unfortunately. And we'll see if being in a new situation that often helps players, and a player like him who had a good resume, good season, minus his broken collarbone injury in 2025, this could be a recipe for him finding a new level of his game. So maybe we'll be eating some of our words here, at least for me, saying that I'm not so sure if he's a starter. Other news that came in over this week, but not necessarily with personnel, is what the players will be wearing. There was a leak of the new kit. Mike, I know you saw the photo of it. Looks like it's going to play on either an image of lightning or maybe roots. And I think that might have to do with something of the color scheme as well. It's primarily black with red stripes. It's not exactly a Metrostars homage kit that I know you and I have been hoping for a while. But it is something different. I've seen mixed reviews online about it. What are your thoughts on that? I see you got the ESC shirt as well. Shout out to ESC. Yes. Shout out to Icarus, the kit brand as well for putting that together. Your thoughts on the new kit that the players will be wearing this year?
Man, it. I hate. I think it's fine. I just hate that everyone keeps saying, "Oh, it looks like Roots. Oh, it looks like Lightning. Oh, it's Stranger Things." And I just kind of look at it. Say again. The Stranger Thing one's funny. Yeah. But I look at it. I just feel like, bro, it just looks like blood. Like it looks very like. I don't know. I don't hate it. I think it could look cool. But I think the best comment I saw was, "This is like what my white shirt's like after this team drives me to like bash my head against the wall." It's just like, I don't know. It looks cool, but it's so different. It's not the camo kit or the glitch kit. In terms of like, I've seen some really interesting stuff from around the league. This is not one of them, but it's also just not offensive. It's going to be something that when the players wear it, it's going to look cool. Like, this is something that you're going to see. I can't even say it's in Models. You're going to see in like Dick's, or you're going to see in somewhere RIP. Like RIP. In a couple months or at the end of the season for heavy discount. But overall, just do bars, bro. Like, it's not that hard. I mean, like I said, it's just okay to me.
Yeah. I'm 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 always of the opinion that if you see a picture of a shirt and it's like lying on the ground, it's always going to look better when it's on a person and they're playing in a game. So we'll wait and see until, someone models it, whether or not it looks cool or not. I think it could look pretty cool. I agree that it's people trying to like assign value to it, roots, lightning, stranger things. That can be like it's just a shirt, sometimes. But the blood thing I think is funny. It looks almost like veins too, like the way the patterns spread
Yeah.
out. Yeah, so I see that too for sure. Um, I don't know. Apparently, it's supposed to be paired with black shorts, so we'll see.
See, that's gonna be good because like if you have,
Right.
and I'm sure the shorts are gonna have like the red bars on the side.
Yes,
It's
the
not gonna be
Adidas.
shirt,
Yeah,
but yeah, so like that's gonna look good. Like black, no, I'm a Yankees fan, and I still think the black Met jerseys are like bomb. So it's like
yeah, they're
teams
cool.
that wear black as their alt look good to me. The New Jersey Devils look good in black. The Mets look good in black. Like it's just, you know what? I can respect a good black kit, black jersey once in a while, and like the Red Bulls going in that route, it's cool. I just, it's not ironic like Jersey, and it's not amazing like Mets black.
We'll wait and see about the shorts because that's unconfirmed. But from what I hear, there may
Yeah.
be black shorts. Um, Look, the fact that they're sticking with the black and red too, it's not a Metrostars shirt. It's not doesn't have the stripes up and down that we've been hoping for. But Atlanta United kind of stole that whole look. But I think it's kind of nice that they're continuing to stick with the black and red. And I think that kind of couples with the new logo changes as well, the more simplification of the logo and the colors. Maybe they'll measure together nicely, and we'll see when it's finally used in a game.
We've
Back
had our
to
kits
yes,
stolen. We've had our kits stolen by like so many, like NYCFC. Oh, we can't do blue and gold anymore. Oh, we can't do bars anymore because Atlanta. It's just like at a certain point, you just gotta just do make if it looks good, just do it.
just like so many people would buy and wear that specific jersey drop for like if in 2027 the jersey is white and black stripes, like everyone would buy it. And that would be the jersey they wore to games for years after, if it was a
Yeah,
Metro Stars thing. That's just, I mean, maybe
it
not
could still say
so
Red
many of the
Bulls.
younger fans, but
Yeah. No, even it would look clean.
yeah, it would look clean. And we would, I mean, to be fair, we were the first thieves from AC Milan, but we were very open about that, very public about it. So, that's just how it goes. As
Yeah.
for more personnel news, rumor coming out of Denmark that the Red Bulls were trying to look for that young domestic goalkeeper that had been mentioned. Back at the Michael Bradley press conference, George of the Exchange FC, shout out George, asked Julian de Guzman if they had solved the situation at goalkeeper yet. His answer was, not yet, but we're close. And that could have been in reference to Gavin Beavers, the goalkeeper, or I should say the backup goalkeeper for Brøndby, the former homegrown out of Real Salt Lake, 20-year-old American goalkeeper. The Red Bulls reportedly have put in a bid for him that was rejected. Brøndby sees him as a goalkeeper for the future and an important backup for the team now. He has only ever played one game since he made the jump to Denmark at the start of 2025. So they must think very speculatively highly of him as the goalkeeper moving forward. We'll see if that was the Red Bulls' solution to the goalkeeper position. If De Guzman, when he said we're close, if he was in fact talking about Gavin Beavers. If not, the only other domestic goalkeepers that are out there that make some sense that are not already have been signed to an MLS team, player like Ethan Horvath or a player like Tyler Miller, I know was brought up at least in the Red Bulls Discord. So there are a number of names maybe if they want to continue looking for a goalkeeper, but I think they may be done. What are your thoughts, Mike? Because I know a lot of us expected that Marcucci would be the heir apparent to the number one, but his injury is kind of made that a whole situation now where it's going to at least take some time for him to come back. And we thought that McCarthy would just be given the job at least temporarily. That doesn't necessarily look like the case. We'll see if in the 9 days before their first preseason scrimmage, if there will be a new goalkeeper, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, look, you I think I said it. I said it on the Red Bull Discord that if John McCarthy loses the starting job to a bunch of kids who probably unironically called the team chat. The guy should just retire at this point. We don't know the situation with goalkeeper. We're also looking at that other Paraguayan national team player. Who funny? Why do we keep going to that country for goalkeepers? I don't know. But it's worrying that we're not locked in on anything yet. It feels like we're just going to start with John McCarthy and then have one of the two young guys on backup, which is fine. And then we'll see when AJ, if he heals up right, comes in. But yeah, look, as someone who covers like USL and someone who watches USL in the lower leagues, I almost wonder I'm not saying you go out and ask Tampa for Jordan Farr because or someone like that because he's signed through 26 or someone like whoever had a really stellar year with Orange City last year because Red Bull would not buy a goalkeeper from USL. But at the end of the day, it's like I almost just prefer you bite the bullet and buy someone who's experienced and not John McCarthy because it feels like he had his struggles last year. But if that's the idea they're going with, okay, fine, sure.
Yeah, I think it's only a matter of time. Are they going to commit to finding a new goalkeeper? Because the report that came out about Gavin Beavers said that in the winter there was a bid that was rejected. I don't know if that means it was rejected recently, if this had been something the Red Bulls had been trying to do for a month or so. That much is unclear. So I don't know if this is something that they're continuing to look for. We'll see whether or not there is a new goalkeeper. There are several areas on the field where they could continue to add to this team. Goalkeeper is one of them. Center back, center mid, we've already mentioned. There's still a DP spot that hasn't been utilized yet. And while for a good reason, Michael, a lot of us have been very positive about the work that Julian de Guzman's gotten done. 6 key players moved on from the team in this one offseason. That's significant, and it was to a lot of us probably the right thing to do in terms of at least from a roster construction standpoint, in terms of getting money and assets freed up. But now it's about what type of players can they bring in. De Guzman said it was a priority to bring in a third DP. We'll see if that's something they want to do before the season starts, or if it's something they want to do in the summer. A player that they were linked with for a very long time is signing a DP deal in MLS, but not with the Red Bulls. It's Timo Werner going to the San Jose Earthquakes. Did any of us ever think that the Earthquakes would make like a big splash type of signing? I know Werner is certainly past the player that was getting call-ups to the German national team regularly, but I mean, this is one that Red Bulls fans thought they were going to get. His salary demands were a little bit too high for what New York was willing to pay. I guess San Jose found an agreement that works out with him. We'll see what the Red Bulls do with their final DP spot. Do we think that come the end of January, come the beginning of the season in February, that we're going to see a new goalkeeper, that we're going to see a new DP? I think at that point, fans would start to get concerned if we don't get some of those things.
Yeah, I mean, look, hey, maybe John Fisher had some extra money because his team they can't spend all that money on Vegas merch, Vegas Oakland merch now because that trademark got denied. So maybe he has some extra.
That
cash
was hilarious.
Around. So good. I love this saga. It's so funny, man. And don't worry, San Jose, you're next. But the one thing I'm gonna say is like with all the I don't want to go too much what you said. The one thing I'll say is that compare how many players have left this offseason compared to how many players left at the end of last offseason. And it's both a lot. I would say, though, that this time it was the Red Bulls doing the culling versus being culled. Last year, it was a lot. You had a couple of trades. One because a guy, one was Andres Reyes, who, yeah, he was traded. I would argue that there were other forces in play on that one. But yeah, he was traded. Everything else was the players, like the contracts up, things like that, moving on. The Red Bulls are the ones saying, yeah, Lewis Morgan, this ain't working, goodbye. Or, yeah, Peter Stroud, where this ain't working. Stuff like that. So it feels like it's New York in control of their roster versus the roster in control of New York, if that makes sense.
100%. And I would argue that they shouldn't even be done in that respect. Wiki Carmona was a player that has been talked about quite a bit as one who was a bit of a burden for this team last year. it might not be easy to find a place for him to move, but that should be something that the club is exploring.
Yeah,
Same
FC
for a guy
Motown's
like,
looking.
really?
Yeah. Well, the
Well,
Cosmos.
the Cosmos, the Cosmos, that'd be a pretty big jump down. But that would be an exciting player for the Cosmos in their inaugural season. We'll see what that looks like. And I think Dennis Youngor is another player that fits that bill too. And I've heard people make the case for Serge Goma as well as someone that, has it worked out for him in a little while? I don't want to go too much depth on in Goma because he's just been so unfortunately riddled with injury. Such a player that had such a high ceiling, but unfortunately hasn't had the opportunity to progress as a player because he's been sidelined with those injuries. But I think it's still an unfinished product with the squad. It's starting to get a little more concerning as, like you mentioned, we're a month away from the season. They haven't ironed out all these issues. As far as the goalkeeper ranks, they looked at, or at least Gatito Fernandez himself expressed interest in joining the club, but the club kind of pulled back on that and said, well, we want to get a younger American goalkeeper, one that wouldn't be an international. Gatito Fernandez, I think, would be one of the better goalkeepers in the league, but I understand that point from New York. They don't need to spend so much on the goalkeeper position. It's not a recipe for success in this league. But again, we will see if they're going to try to pivot with the goalkeeper position now. We'll see if Gavin Beavers was plan A or if it was their only plan or what have you. Time will tell on that, and hopefully it doesn't get too close to the season that they start to make panic purchases and they really have a well thought out plan. As for players departing, a couple of Red Bull 2 players are on loan to MLS Next Pro Independent side, Connecticut United. Ibrahim Kasule and Steven Sserwadda, a couple of Ugandan internationals who have been important pieces for Red Bulls 2 over several years, will be going to Connecticut United for the season. I like this move because I just think it gives promising players another opportunity to keep playing. Kasule, the highest goal scorer all time for Red Bull 2, I believe, at least in MLS Next Pro play. Sserwadda, a player who can play a multitude of positions, who was somewhat involved with the Red Bulls first team under Gerhard Struber. And a couple injuries later has been a Red Bull 2 player pretty consistently. I like this move. I think it opens up more opportunities for players. And as far as, new independent MLS Next Pro teams, I think it makes sense to pick up these types of players on loan as you're trying to build up your squad. I think it makes a complete sense to look at a team like Red Bull New York that had such success with their reserve team in MLS Next Pro, and you pick up a couple of important players, ones that probably wouldn't be in the starting 11 into 2026 in MLS Next Pro for Red Bull. You bring them in, integrate them with Connecticut United, you bounce them off with a couple of college players. I think it's a good move for them. I think it's a good move from the team. And I know you are more of an aficionado of lower league teams than I am, Michael. I want to get your thoughts on these two loanees going out to Connecticut United, and maybe if there's anything we could expect from the team and what will be their first season.
Yeah. Connecticut United was probably one of the first expansion team. Like, they were one of the first announced expansion teams for MLS Next Pros. I want to say third generation, because the first generation was Rochester, New York FC. The second generation was Chattanooga and Carolina Core. And then Connecticut, or they're also called CT United. They're kind of like the start of the third generation. They're the only Next Pro expansion side next year, and then there's like 6 in 2027. So with them, they have a lot of lofty goals. A lot of their stuff feels kind of weird. I don't want to be mean, but like when you hear a guy saying, "I want to bring an MLS team to Connecticut," and that's his first thing you hear from, I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
buddy,
I remember
sure.
that.
Yeah, and so I'm like, it was like, what was it? MLS to CT, and I was like, yeah, sure. What are you gonna go to Nisa or something? So when he finally did come around, I was like, oh, okay, you're serious here, and they're gonna build a stadium at the old dog park, and I'm like, okay, all right. They bring in Dennis Hamlet, and then there's red flags. Look, they brought and then they bring in Dennis Hamlet as the sporting director. Say what you want about him. He's got an eye. He has an eye on local players, and he still goes to Red Bull 2 games. You will see him in the upper deck of Montclair State University to the right of the press box. He's always there. So, like, for two Red Bull 2 players to go to C2 United on loan, it makes total sense that he just picked up the phone going, "Hey, can we do this?" And they went, "Probably sure, yeah, why not?" And he gets more minutes. This team's still building. I ain't gonna make a prediction of what they're going to do. I've watched some, or I've heard about some of their results in like USLA or MLS Next. It was MLS Next. They've been okay in that, so they're doing well youth soccer wise. But overall, we'll have to see. But for the Rebels, it makes sense to send two players to a team that's close by that you can watch them, and they can get more minutes in. Meanwhile, Connecticut gets two players who know American soccer and can actually be ready to go off the ground. Because a lot of the players that bring in now are like Germans, Italians, Africans, like players who have youth prospects, but they don't know the American style. So, it helps.
Kasule for me was a player who I thought was, inching closer to a jump to the first team with how he was a couple seasons ago. Has since been overshadowed in the forward position by a number of new players that came in and new players. Not only, Rold Mitchell was a player who came back from injury and completely leapfrogged himself to the top of all the forwards within the Red Bulls reserve ranks. And I think he's going to get a shot to have something of an impact with the first team in 2026. So I love this move for them. The Dennis Hamlet connection makes it make so much more sense. And I got to give a little personal shout out to Connecticut United, CT United, for signing Danny DiPolito out of Fordham University, one of the talisman of the Fordham Rams for the past 4 years, a 2-year captain, 2-time Atlantic 10 midfielder of the year. Was the Atlantic 10 Offensive Player of the Year as a senior. This is a guy who's local from Long Island who can really, really play. I was a little bit surprised that he got completely overlooked in the MLS Super Draft, but I think he found the right choice in a team like CT United and MLS Next Pro. Still 21 years old, could still have a big career at the pro ranks after being dominant in the NCAA. So definitely happy that a guy that I got to commentate a few times in college is going to be playing pro. That'll be exciting for him. As for preseason, the Red Bulls have already begun it. They've started it in New Jersey. They've got a whole schedule preseason now slated for them. They've got 6 preseason matches as well between New Jersey, IMG Academy in Florida, and the Torneo de Tejas, because we love meaningless tournaments in this club's history.
2001 Walt Disney preseason champions.
2011 Emirates Cup champions. You'll never sing that. Was it 2011 or 2012?
2011.
2011. You'll never sing that. Anyway, the first match will be at IMG on Wednesday, January the 21st against the USL League One's Sarasota Paradise. Then they'll play St. Louis City SC that Saturday at IMG. It will be a quick hello with former Red Bull Daniel Edelman. Very quickly. Also, should mention that the first ever MLS meeting between the two teams will happen this July, I believe. So this summer, they'll have their first ever meeting with St. Louis and San Diego. So they'll be saying hello to Daniel Edelman and Lewis Morgan again very, very shortly.
And Andres Reyes.
Yes. Although he didn't get to play much for San Diego FC last year due to injury, he will probably be a pretty important player of their team should he stay healthy in 2026. Then they come back to New Jersey. They'll play Hartford Athletic, a team that they've played scrimmages against before, USL Championship side. The Jägermeister Cup champions, Hartford Athletic, I should say, a team that they played a few years ago in the Open Cup. That was a win for the Red Bulls in their only ever competitive match. And then they're going to go to Texas. I'm going to go between Frisco, home of FC Dallas, and Houston for games against FC Dallas on February the 7th. Then Atlanta United on February the 11th. And then they'll finish up their preseason in Houston on February the 14th against the Dynamo. I know it's not always fun to play 4 of your 6 games preseason against other MLS teams. It's always more fun when they get to play teams outside of the league where you can get to try more things against the Sarasota, against the Hartford Athletic. But I know you mentioned this on Seeing Red already, so we can keep this brief. But thoughts on the preseason schedule? I know, Mike, as I would, you would have hoped that they featured more matches against lower division teams here.
Yeah, but I will say though that if you're going to play against MLS teams, I like it being in a preseason tournament. If you're going to do that, at least have some sort of competition aspect of it, Just because I think no one's going out trying to win this. It's like when a MLB team wins. Oh, they're the Spring League champions, or for whatever, or the Desert League champions for preseason. No one cares, but it's funny that you can put that on Wikipedia, and there's probably like some, there's like some little thing that you get in your that you can put in your trophy case next to some, like you said, a row of meaningless trophies. 2023 Coachella Valley Invitational champions. Um, I will say though that it very interesting to me that they are playing Sarasota, because Sarasota is a former USL League Two team getting their first taste of professional play. So that team is going to be heavily in development. So I don't know how much Red Bull is going to get from that. Hartford's always good to play because Hartford is a team that they are bridesmaids through and through. They're like every professional sports team ever from Hartford. They are bridesmaids. So they're good to play because they are always going to try new things and they're going to push whatever team they play against them. I shouldn't say they're always bridesmaids. They did just win USL Cup. So I have to get that out of my head. But that was their first time. So it's like it's nice to play a team like that. And then, the one thing I'm also going to say is that with the tournament, it's nice that at least one of these games is going to be in front of fans. I don't know if we're going to have TV versions of it like we did with the Coachella thing, but FC Dallas season ticket holders can watch this game. Like they could go and watch it. Something that Red Bull doesn't do. So I can't, everything's secrets. So it's nice that you're going to be playing in something with structure against teams that, you're going to. The one good thing is that a lot of them are Western Conference, so you're not going to run into them a lot. That's the good thing, except for Atlanta. So,
That's typically the way that the Red Bulls do preseason. They played against St. Louis and Hartford last year in preseason. They played against San Jose, Real Salt Lake, and they were scheduled to play San Diego FC. I don't know if they ever did play that match against San Diego FC last year, but all Western Conference. So it's a similar pattern. It's a little unfortunate that these games, as far as we know, for the Torneo de Tejas, will not be live streamed. Haven't heard anything about that. It was nice to have the Coachella Valley Invitational on My 9. It was cool to
My 9,
get My 9 back on. It's not just Seinfeld reruns. They have the Coachella Valley Invitational as well. So we'll see if there's any news about that with regards to streaming for the Torneo de Tejas. But the fact that fans can turn up for those games, I think, brings at least some more stakes. There's a trophy at the end of it. Doesn't really matter, but it'll be fun.
Just let me go to the training center. Let me go to the training center and watch Hartford. I don't even want to report it. Just let me go. I won't even report it. I have an itch, bro. Please.
You'd be more excited to see Hartford than you would the Red Bulls. That's
literally, I would be watching Hartford more than the Red Bulls. I would be annoying. Everyone's like, "Oh, how does Chupamoting look?" And I go, "Who?"
I believe Hartford also plays Red Bulls 2 in a preseason match as well, as part of Red Bulls 2's preseason camp.
Yeah.
So again, a continuation of that pattern as well, doing things the Red Bull way here before the season starts. But before the season starts, like I said, I'm not sure if this is a completed roster that they have, if they've gotten everything done in the squad. In my eyes, it's not. We'll get another word in with the manager Michael Bradley and the head of sport Julian de Guzman before the season starts, at least once, I think maybe a couple times, and we'll get to maybe get some more answers there twice, I believe. So that's good news. For me, the roster's not finished. I still believe they need to add another center back, either for depth or to start on the right ahead of Tim Parker. I think they need another 8 or 6 to play next to Berggren and Donkor and Mehmeti. And I think if they're going to use that DP spot on someone, it should be a winger to play opposite Cade Cowell, to play ahead of Cameron Harper. Imagine you have Cameron Harper as an impact sub as opposed to he gets injured once and the season is in shambles. I think that's we're starting to think more pragmatically there about what makes a good MLS team. If that's the jump your roster makes, I think that's something that they're going to have to consider. We'll see whether or not that's what the plan is for the squad. But now we're going to get to a fun part of the show, Mike, something that we both prepared a little bit for, but I'm glad that we're doing some of it spur of the moment. We're going to go through roughly each of the positions on the football pitch: goalkeeper, defenders, midfielders, forwards, and then a fun category at the end. And we're going to give the top 4 Mount Rushmore style of players in Red Bulls / Metrostars history at that position. Top 4 in each of those roles. And then the 5th category, I haven't really come up with a fun, proper name for it. I said the unlikely legends. Mike said the red cows. Some of the meme players who, maybe weren't the best on the pitch, but certainly the fans enjoyed having them with the club. There's some fun ones there. Mike, I know you have a couple surprises for me in that one, but let's start on the other end. Let's start with the goalkeepers. I think this is going to be the easiest one. When I think of top 4 goalkeepers in Red Bulls history, four names came to my head really quickly. So this is how we're going to do it. Mike, I'm going to give you throw out a name. If I agree, I throw out another name. Then you throw out a name until we get to 4. How's that sound?
This is a joke with this one.
This is going to be a joke. So we'll start with the goalkeepers. First name I'll say, should be the first name out of everybody's lips, the all-time appearance leader for this club's history, and it's Luis Robles, the Iron Man. That's who I've got. I don't think there should be any argument to that. Who would be the second Mount Rushmore candidate for Red Bulls Metrostars goalkeepers, Michael? Unless you want to argue.
I'm not going to argue. Robles can go ahead. Like Robles is top. For me, Iron Man, 3 shields, like just someone who you've got to respect what he was for this club. And he's the only man on Legends Row. He's not, for some reason, we both have Legends Row in retired numbers, but whatever. So number 1 for him. My second would be Tony Meola, just because besides my bias for Carney, he's also probably he was one of the best, if not the best goalkeeper in MLS in its early years. Major impact on this team, huge local connection. And someone who stuck around the club to be like a assistant coach, work with the academy. He stuck around too. So it's very much a deep player for this team.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Shout out Soccer Town USA, Kearney, New Jersey. Just a great ambassador for the area and for the club as well in its early days, and then had a second stint. But in between those stints, also won MLS MVP, I believe the only goalkeeper to this date to have ever won the award, although he did that with the Kansas City Wiz, but we'll forgive him, and he'll be number 2. For number 3, I'm going to go with Tim Howard. Back-to-back MLS Best 11 seasons between 2003 2004 before he made the jump to Manchester United, and then spent an illustrious career with Everton before returning to MLS with the Colorado Rapids. Wasn't here as long as some of the other goalkeepers that maybe could get a snub, some could argue, but Tim Howard, the most dominant goalkeeper to ever put on this team's colors, and another local guy, local connection, is maybe the best goalkeeper in American history, had over 100 caps with the U.S. men's national team, World Cup hero in 2010, 2014, but in a Metrostars Red Bull shirt, I still believe he was one of their best 4, and again, I think you can't really argue against that one either, Mike.
No, you can't. You can't. It's just pure, I don't want to say dominance, but just someone who was a brick wall for this team.
An absolute legend. And the 4th and final one, Mike, who would you say?
I'd say it's Carlos Coronel, which is funny because on paper, he was so hot and cold that you could, if he didn't get to MLS Cup, you could put Mira on here. But even that feels dirty because he was just a presence. Or you could put Buna because he was like a solid player for a couple of years and you kind of be filling out the roster. But Coronel's 2024 gets him here. And just so like the PK shootout against Columbus is going to the PK shootout and ripping his shirt off in front of the South Ward got him on this list. And I don't think anyone can argue that.
He did that mid shootout too. It was not like the shootout was over.
He did it twice, yeah.
He turned it around. He was like, it was something about like some message about God that meant a lot to him. I'm glad he did it. Aura, second longest tenured starting goalkeeper in club history after Luis Robles. I completely agree. I think he needs to be there. Some other names I had written down: Ryan Mara, of course, John Conway, Buna Kundul, who you mentioned, Mike Ammon, and Johnny Walker. There's not a whole long list of goalkeepers who did it for more than like a season at a time. I think Frank Rost, DP goalkeeper, probably doesn't make this list, and I didn't have him in the short list that we put together. So I think the goalkeepers, I thought that was an easy four. We've gotten that four. That was my four before we started. Let's move over to the defenders. I think this one gets a little bit harder because you start to incorporate some academy candidates in here, some players who were with the club for a while and then went on to have good careers with the first team. You've got players who were with the USL team and jumped and had a good career with the first team. And then you've got guys in the Metrostars days who are were U.S. national team regulars and legends in that regard in a way. So I can let you start on this one because this one I'm feeling a little bit less confident about. Who would you say first for the pantheon of Red Bull's Metrostars defenders?
So I'm not as confident, but I am confident my number one, and it's Mike Petke.
Mike
Um,
Petke.
and I try not to let the coaching influence it,
Hmm.
but I just think that if you look at Petke and what he did with this team, it's you. Well, he held records like for this team, and I can't remember them off the top of my head because I'm a bad journalist. But like one of the all-time just stout players for this team, like center back, one of the better. I forget if he was with the Metro Stars, but he was like uh cap team leader, things like that. Fans loved him, so yeah, you have to put him on the list.
And of course, you can't forget the town hall. Cannot forget the town hall with Mike Petke involved. I know.
I'm just gonna put this out here. When Chattanooga FC was going into MLS Next Pro, I know someone who was at the event that Ali Curtis is the president of MLS Next
Yes.
Pro, and they went up to him and they were a Chattanooga FC fan, and they just went up to him and said, "I'm really happy that Chattanooga is going to be a professional team in MLS Next Pro. I just have one question for you: why did you fire Mike Petke?" And Ali Curtis just kind of went deer in the headlights and
Oh,
going,
man.
I'm not going to curse on the show, but he says, "Are you a bleeping Red Bull fan?" And the guy goes, "No, no, I just had to ask you that because I would not be able to live it down if I didn't." And he did not get an answer.
Said we won the Supporter Shield that season with Jesse Marsh, and that would have been a pretty good answer. But either way, all-time Red Bulls. I mean, Mike Petke had some issues post-coaching career after Red Bull rightfully is no longer coaching in MLS anymore. But in terms of what he did for the Metro Stars as a player and later captaining the Red Bulls as a player, I mean, cannot be overstated. It'd be tough to argue that he doesn't belong on this list. We'll go to number two. I'll say Aaron Long, 2018 MLS Defender of the Year. One of those players who was the Jesse Marsh project that turned into a reality. Part of that USL team in 2016 that won it. He came into Red Bull as a midfielder who would not be able to find their feet in MLS, whether it was with the Timbers or whether it was with the Sounders. He found a home as a defender with Red Bull and later spurned that into a 2018 MLS Best 11 caliber season, Supporter Shield winning season, arguably the best season the Red Bulls ever had in 2018. At the time, it was a points record setter, and also had a good career, arguably, with the U.S. national team. Whether or not he had a good career with the national team is up for debate, but he had dozens of caps with the national team, captained it at multiple times under Greg Berhalter. For me, he's number two. So I think that's two center backs. I was thinking I have two fullbacks in my mind for 3 and 4, and I had maybe one snub that I think would be an argument against Petke if we get to that. But if you want to pick a third, go right ahead.
All right. I don't know if this is going to be a agreed upon one. I am going to take um, the former New York Cosmos head coach, Carlos Mendez, as my
With
number
Mendes.
three.
That
Yes.
so that Mendez was when I said could be an argument against Petke. I said Mendez because they come from not the same era, but were within Red Bull at a similar time. But you defend it. You go ahead. I don't want to step on your toes there.
So the reason I say Mendez is that I think that he's I don't know, maybe one of maybe 30 players who have like over 100 caps with this team,
Hmm.
and he deserved every cap with this team. And you have to remember he played pre Metro Stars up until like the first year of New York Red Bulls or Red Bull Arena. going through multiple coaches, going through multiple downward spirals, going to an MLS Cup, going through a wooden spoon season, or missing the playoffs, and then bouncing back with it. Always good enough to remain on this team, and consistent presence. I won't say he was always consistent on the field, but I will say that he was good when he needed to be, and he was always someone who needed, and he was always someone I think the fans respected. Also, I'm not going to forget the fact that he won an NPSL national title with New York Cosmos B. So I'm also going to say shout out to that. But yeah, my man is Carlos Mendez. He's got my vote.
Totally respect the Mendez shout. He's a player who spanned multiple eras. Got the Cosmos scarf, showing it off. Love it. Shout out to Giuseppe Rossi as well, another local guy. Carlos Mendez, for me, like I said, a player who spanned multiple eras, who did it under several managers, who managed to be an impactful center back over nearly 150 MLS games, I want to say. I think he had somewhere around 150 for the Red Bulls alone. Also finished his MLS career in Columbus before finishing his career out in the NASL with the New York Cosmos, later manager of the New York Cosmos. So a local legend, club legend. I think he makes total sense.
Emirates Cup champion.
Emirates Cup champion. I think it makes perfect sense to be in this conversation. Now, for the fourth, I've got two different left backs in my mind as to who should be the fourth. One of them was, for me, maybe the most enjoyable fullback I've ever watched in Major League Soccer, and it's Kemar Lawrence, the taxi man himself. When he joined MLS and the Red Bulls in 2015, and to the time where he became a regular in the squad shortly thereafter, I don't think anybody ever looked back on the thought that he was the best fullback in Major League Soccer. I know Amir Murillo, who's a fellow CONCACAF fullback, and came in around that time, went on to have a better career post Red Bulls in Europe, now with Marseille, of course, and he's a super important player for the Panamanian national team, which has kind of followed the career trajectory of Murillo in terms of the steps it's taken within the region and within international football, and in a way that Jamaica and Kemar Lawrence unfortunately never did. Taxi, I mean, what else can you say about him? He was a baller. No one could take him on 1v1 in MLS. He was good enough offensively where it wasn't like, well, we need to get a new fullback who can get forward. Like, no, he was a player who pitched in on both sides of the ball, was unbeatable on his day defensively, and had pace and stamina for days. I can't think of a defensive player that I enjoyed watching more with the Red Bulls than Kemar Lawrence. Unfortunately, I don't have the longevity to have been able to watch players back in the day and remember them as well. But I do believe that there could not have been a player better than Kemar Lawrence at what he did as a fullback in Major League Soccer. So our four currently is we have Mike Petke, Aaron Long, Carlos Mendez, and Kemar Lawrence. And I think, we kind of pull players from two of the best eras of the club there in terms of making out that four. I think there's a couple snubs here. Your thoughts on those four, Michael, before I get into who I think might have been snubbed?
No, I think those are all good. Those are all really good picks. It's funny that three of these are at the top of your thing that you made, because you made a list of, a cheat sheet if you guys need to look at stuff. So it's having those three there. The fourth option is the one I would say got snubbed a little bit, but when you have a team has been very, no offense, Red Bull soccer has never been offense heavy, so you always look at the defense. It makes sense to the defense is probably one of the hardest ones to pick. So if Eddie Pope gets left out, I'm sorry. If Connor Lade, I love him, he as a personal thing, it makes sense. Steve Jolly's got a great voice, but he's gonna get left out. It makes sense.
We can only pick four if we're doing a Mount Rushmore. I'm upset I committed to the Mount Rushmore thing because I don't like Mount Rushmore as a cultural icon, but I don't have to get into that and the reasons why. But Connor Lade, I'm glad you mentioned, a fan favorite, but would he belong in this list? Unfortunately, no. One player that I think for specific reasons might be a snub is John Tolkien, because Do I think he was a better left back at his best than Kamar Lawrence? Maybe not. But does he represent a different contingent of player? One who came through the academy, local player who at a young age proved his worth and then made the jump to Europe, went to the 2024 MLS Cup final. I'm okay with leaving him out of this top four. But another name, Eddie Pope, you mentioned. It's hard to put him here because, you don't think of his career as Metrostars, right? Although he was dominant in his 2 seasons for the club. Tim Ream, another player who, maybe wasn't here long enough to really cement himself as, ahead of Aaron Long on this list when it pertains to this club. And then Jeff Park, I thought was another one that maybe would have been an interesting pick. I see him as sort of the type of pet key option, a player who was with the club from 2004 to 2008, regular starter in defense, Metrostar and Red Bull, both. I think he's one that could have snuck in, but I'm happy with the 4 we have. So far, 4 goalkeepers: Robles, Howard, Miola, Coronel. The defenders: Aaron Long, Kamar Lawrence, Carlos Mendez, and I'm going with excuse me, who did I? Oh, I'm missing one now. Oh my goodness, I stepped on myself. Who's our 4? And Petke I didn't mention.
Petke, yeah.
Long, Lawrence, Mendez, Petke. Those are our 4. Now let's move to the midfielders. I think this one is also going to be pretty tough. I've tried to exclude wingers from this for the most part,
because they don't exist.
Because wingers not in Red Bull anymore. But I've roped in the players who would have been considered wingers in years past with the forwards, with a couple of exceptions. So I don't think any wingers are going to get into the midfield. But my first pick, one of my favorite players growing up, captain. We mentioned him in this episode already today. Dax McCarty, got to be in there. 2-time Supporter Shield winner. Captain of the team, heart and soul, was the smallest guy on the pitch, but would win every header somehow. Got to have Dax McCarty in there. He's my number 1 midfielder so far. Who do you have, Michael?
I'm going to keep the bias going, and I'm going to say that Tab Ramos is my number 2, because it's, yes, bias, but also because one of the first players signed by the team, like when they became the Metrostars, over 100 caps again, only 8 goals in league play, but just someone who was heavily consistent with the team. Remained and then went on to do other things where he was a various head coach afterwards, and he did not have the staying power as Tony did. But I will say, though, probably one of the better players in the team's early history was Tab Ramos.
And yeah, first signing, you don't get the lore of the Metrostars without a name like Tab Ramos headlining your squad
right after the World Cup.
Yeah, and shout out again, Soccertown USA. Many people who played with him in that era, guys like Tony Miola, don't believe the U.S. has ever produced a player like Tab Ramos since he was a player. So
the worst part about him was 2 ACL injuries during his time. Like, that's what sidelined him. And I think one of those was during the playoffs too, which, with how crazy the 90s were, like the Metro Stars probably could have snuck their way to a game, like to a championship then. That would have been forgotten, but you would have had it. It's just that he wasn't able to stay consistently healthy as time went on.
And I hope some perhaps older fans of the club who remember these moments of the club's history more vividly can either confirm, or if disagree with us, please let us know, because these are times that we don't necessarily remember as well as some other people. But you can't have Tab Ramos not on this list. And with that said, I'm going to stick in the past. We're going with another Metro star here, the only ever Metro Stars MVP. I'm going with Amado Guevara, who was as dominant a player as they came in that era of Major League Soccer, especially for this club. You can't exclude him either. I think Ramos and Guevara are non-negotiables, especially if you ask fans of this club from years past. But for younger fans, check out Amado Guevara highlights, whether in a Metro Stars jersey or just from his career in general. Absolute legend of the team. MLS MVP, I believe, in 2004, but I don't want to get that wrong. So I will check on that. But I mean, just an absolute legend, attacking midfielder, whether used as a second striker, attacking midfielder, something of a shuttling number eight, a guy who just dominated for the Metro Stars, early club legend for this team. And I think it's interesting, actually, that the midfielders, two of the three we have so far, are from the Metro Stars era of the team. And I don't think that'll be the case for most of these positions. So, fourth and final player from the midfield for you, Michael Battista.
You know, I just realized something. You don't have him on your list.
Oh my good, who have I left off?
I'm going to say that. So I was actually torn about this, and I was torn between Tim and Emil, and I was Tim Cahill, Emil Forsberg, and Sasha Kljestan because I think all three represent um early 2000s, 2010s, and current, and I think all three have a claim.
Yeah,
But you, you know,
it's
uh
hard. It's really hard.
it is hard. It is hard. You know what? I'm going to go. Yeah, I'm actually going to go with. Actually, no, he was a forward. He wasn't. The person who I thought you didn't have for a second, I thought. Wait, do you have him listed as a forward? Hold
I
on.
may, I may. There were a couple
You,
players that could go either way.
so, yeah, never mind. So for my fourth, I'm probably going to go with Tim Cahill. Um,
Yeah,
Cahill, because like he was one of the first DP signings that actually panned out, and I think just his presence was a main factor in that first Shield run, and
hmm
he's got a huge place in this team's lore. Uh, I would put him here for that reason, but you could convince me of a lot of people who can deserve their name because at the end of the day, he only played 62 games, and that's why I'm like not as convinced on it. Emil, in the same way, he's so young in the team that it's hard for me to put him there. And with Question, I feel like there's a lot of bias with it. Like I love Question, but I also see him every week now, so I don't know if that's just recency bias. So I'm going to go Cahill, but you could convince me of Question.
I think for just the assist numbers that he put up in 2016 and 2017, Sasha Kljestan has a claim to it for sure. Also a captain after Dax McCarty left the team. Sean Davis, as a homegrown player, in terms of appearances, is way up there. Do I think he's one of the four best midfielders in the history of the club? No. Forsberg, I agree, in terms of quality, is up there, but hasn't had that long of a time with the club yet, and we'll see if he has that big of an impact outside of the 2024 playoff run. Another player that I really loved during his time was Seth Stamler, who I thought was a crucial
Mm.
midfielder, an unsung hero, but again, probably doesn't sneak into a top four list. And then Tyler Adams, who I think is the best example of the power of the academy. He's the best player to ever come through this team's academy, and being a big part of that supporter shield team in 2018 and then going on to having a successful career and counting in Europe, whether it be in Germany or England. He's a good torchbearer for this team, but is he one of the best four with the New York Red Bulls, with Red Bull New York, with the Metro Stars? It'd be hard to make that case. Tim Cahill being as crucial to that 2013 Shield team, you're absolutely right. I don't know if I think we've gotten the right four. Dax McCarty, Tab Ramos, Amado Guevara, Tim Cahill.
I'm going to say this. Cahill's a better player. Sasha's a better Red Bull.
You know what? I think that might be
I think that's probably where
that's
my
a pretty
brain
good
is
way to
at.
put it.
Yeah,
So,
so
so,
probably
so
Sasha deserves to be number four over Timmy. I think also my brain just goes to I really liked watching him play in the World Cup with Australia. So it's
well,
like
technically when he scored that goal in 2014 against the Netherlands, that unreal ball over the top and he smacked it first time underside of the crossbar. Technically when he scored that, he was under contract with the New York Red Bulls. Just saying.
yes. So it's like I feel like I have a lot of nostalgia for Timmy. So I bet you, yeah, you could switch it to Sasha just because the mustache man, the Des Moines Menace legend, makes more sense.
All right, then you know what? Then let's do it. We'll go with Sasha as the fourth. I Yeah, it feels harsh to have given it to Tim Cahill and then taken it away, but he's gotten quite enough accolades in his
Because
career.
if
I
you
think.
say midfielder to me, I think of Tim Cahill, but it's
Yeah,
not anything against Sasha. It's just that like he was like he got overshadowed by Henri, but he was also just a major international presence, even though Australia is not a major international presence. It was such a weird dichotomy, and he did well with it.
he's. I mean, I think this might even be almost a little bit disrespectful to Tim Cahill and the career that he had, but in many ways, he's kind of like the Landon Donovan of Australian soccer, whereas you know not the United States is not traditionally a big footballing country, neither is Australia, but around the world, everybody kind of understood that the player from America, from the United States, was Landon Donovan. The premier player from Australia was Tim Cahill. And I think Sasha Kleshkin would even agree that Tim Cahill led a better career than he did, all things considered. But as far as their time with Red Bull, I mean, Sasha Kleshkin, assist leader, I'm happy with putting him as number 4. So that means McCarty, Ramos, Cahill, and Kleshkin. Or excuse me, oh my, I did this again. McCarty, Ramos, Kleshkin, and who is the 4th? Why am I messing this up?
Tab.
And no, Guevara. I skipped over Amado
Yeah,
Guevara. Unbelievable. There's now 2 categories in a row that I've read out the 4 wrong, but that is the 4. Let's go to the forwards. You already mentioned the first one, so I'll let you take it away. First
you.
forward.
So he's not the first forward. I'm just gonna go out of order here because
Go ahead.
I
The
don't
order
want.
doesn't matter.
Yeah, because we already know one of them. So I'm gonna start off on the one we know is at the top of your list. I'm starting at the
Yeah.
bottom. I for some reason my brain always calls him a midfielder. That's why I was like, wait a minute, is he a midfielder? No, he's a forward. The first man to ever score a goal in MLS Cup for the New York Red Bulls, John Woolneck, and the first head coach of New York Red Bulls too, would be on the Mount Rushmore of forwards because he played 3 different stints with this team across like both names of this team, over 100 caps, over uh, 30 goals, something like that, close to that. A USL Cup, like I said, he helped bring in Red Bull Arena when it first opened. He helped launch. He was one of the key factors in like a consistent offense, even when the offense was bad. He stuck around, jumped. He was a journeyman around MLS. He was and he was still able to always come back to this team and do well with it. So I would just give John Wolnick my first spot, even though he's not the top. We're going out of order here. I would make sure he's on that list.
So another Fordham guy. So I'm not even going to try to argue that with Woolley. Do I think he's one of the 4 very best quality players in this category? Probably not. But just for what he meant to this club's history, it'd be a little harsh to leave him out. So I like the way you're thinking there, Mike. We'll save the fun one for the end. So there's 2 pretty obvious ones here that belong here. I'm going to go back into the past and pick out a name that when people who watch the Red Bulls, or excuse me, watch the Metrostars in the 90s, when they say this was the guy and he was unbeatable on his day, he laid the foundation for what a striker for this club should be moving forward. And that's Giovanni Savarese. Um, Again, did not have the privilege of watching him play in his career as it played out, but I do understand the importance he had to this club's history. Just an absolute dynamo at the striker position. I think he definitely belongs there's going to be so many snubs from the forward position. I'm just thinking now, so many snubs. We're going to read out and we're going to be like, didn't find a place for them. It's just too hard. But I think Savarese, we can't ignore the Metrostars part of this club's history. And Savarese was the premier goal scorer from that era of club. And you could make an argument that there were players who also wore a Metrostar shirt who were also dominant in front of goal. One name that comes to my mind there, Adolfo Valencia, but definitely Savarese was the premier guy. I think he has to be there. People who watched this team and loved this team at that time could not speak more highly of Savarese. So he'll be number 2. 3 and 4, I think, should be shoo-ins, Michael. So I'll let you take the
Yeah.
first one away.
By the way, no, another Cosmos legend, Gio Savarese,
Yes, that's right. And Long Island Rough Riders legend, I believe, as well.
and Long Island Rough Riders legends. So yeah, and Greek Americans legends,
Yes,
New York
yes,
Greek
he
Americans
played
legends.
throughout the CSL. LIU graduate.
My man has been to like Cosmo League games, just popping up in the corner, and I go, what are you? What?
Hmm.
It's the best because he'll just like pop up out of nowhere, and just like watch the games, even though he's Greek, he's Venezuelan, but he's Greek American all the
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
Um, but no,
But just one more thing that I have to mention. In 2016, New York City FC hosted a home game in the U.S. Open Cup at Fordham University. He was the manager of the Cosmos, the opposition in that game. He managed a victory in that game. So it's another Fordham connection. I digress. Shout out,
yeah,
Gio.
Ciao Gio. Yeah, man. There's three British dudes on here, and I'm really upset I can't say Lloyd Sam because I would love to say
Legend.
Lloyd Sam,
Legend.
legend, the Miami FC legend as well.
Mm-hmm.
I would say like let's just go with um, Thierry Henry is the quintessential big signing for the New York Red Bulls. He was the splash. He's the reason Eric Stover has a job in 2026. He's the reason why so many people have jobs because they went out and said we need a big signing. They got him for the start of for opening a new stadium, and he delivered momentously. He delivered in star power. He delivered in goals scored. He's delivered in success. With that first shield. But I will say that overall, like I'm not saying that he didn't do well. I'm going to say that it's funny because like he helped lead the team to their first major honor. But it's funny when you like look at his tenure with the Red Bulls and 51 goals scored. It's funny that he got surpassed by a dude who was a backup at Man City. But overall, probably one of the most important players in New York Red Bulls history, bar none. And also the fact that he just continues we still see him every week on CBS. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's great to see. So, yeah, Thierry Henry.
Not with Thierry Henry. I mean, he's the greatest player to ever put on this club's jersey. Even if he doesn't have the best, he's the greatest player. Thierry Henry. There's never been a player who the
I
New
see what
York
you're
Red
saying.
Bulls
Okay,
signed,
okay.
Metrostars
Yeah.
ever had that was you could say, yeah, I was better than Thierry Henry. No one else. Thierry Henry stands alone in that way. Was his time with the Red Bulls better than any other forward ever? No. And we're going to get to the guy who had the best career ever as a forward with the Red Bulls with our fourth, but you can't deny the impact Thierry Henry had. My earliest memories watching soccer are at Red Bull Arena with my family watching Thierry Henry, and it was not lost on us the privilege of having one of the greatest players in Premier League history, a Champions League winner with Barcelona. For him to play in our backyard was the privilege of a lifetime, and that was one of the coolest eras in the club's history. And yes, was a huge part of that 2013 Shield team. Rightfully considered a legend for this club, and how could he not be? He's
Shout,
Thierry freaking Henry.
shout out to one of my favorite stories my dad ever tells, where he was coming home from work one day in New York, and does not follow soccer at all. And he just saw this one guy. He just asked me a couple years ago. He goes, "Was there ever a famous French guy who was a Red Bull player?" And I go, "Why? What do he look like? Kind of bald, the skinny." And I go, "Thierry Henry." He goes, "I think that's it." There was just a guy on the PATH train from Hoboken one day going to Harrison, and a bunch of people were talking to him. And it just kind of blew my mind hearing that because Henri was
He's on the path of Thierry
just
Henry. Didn't even know it.
just on the path. Dude lives in like Thierry Henry living in Hoboken, could totally drive. I'm just gonna jump on the path, whatever, and just take the path to the stadium. Don't even know what it was for, but yeah, I just always will. I guess he did integrate himself very well, and maybe it's that also Messi effect where he could just go out to the 2010, the 2000s, 2010s version of Whole Foods, whatever it was back then, and just not get bothered, you know?
Yeah, no, he's spoken to that effect. He was like, I had a penthouse in Soho. Nobody bothered me ever. I could walk around in New York and feel free. Couldn't do that in London. Couldn't do that in Barcelona. But I'm sure he still got stopped and bombarded his fair share of times in the U.S. But I mean, that is crazy. He's on the PATH train and only a few people recognize him. That's nuts. That's crazy. But obviously Thierry Henry is on this list. And then the final guy, number 99, 108 goals for the Red Bulls. It's far and away the record. It's Bradley Wright Phillips, who defined an era of this team under multiple managers, was part of the Shields and part of the record-breaking 27 goal season in 2014, and then went on to win in 2015 and 2018 the Supporter Shield. Just, I mean, we don't even have to say anything about Bradley Wright Phillips. He was the first name penciled in on an all-time Red Bulls best 11. No matter how you start it, he's the first name. He is the only retired jersey in club's history and an absolute legend. And like Sasha Kljestan and like Dax McCarty, it's fun to get to see him every week on Apple TV and occasionally with the Des Moines Menace, Mike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Just nothing else to say. I will. The only thing I will say is that the one thing I will say is that I still love the fact that he was so influential that he's made a lasting impact on this team. And I think he's almost detrimentally left an impact on this team that we're never going to see it again. And the good times are just gone.
You know, you're right, because every season it's like we've not had a better striker since Bradley Wright Phillips. It's like, well, yeah, because he's the best. You're not going to get a better one than the best.
It's
But
like, yeah, it's like Mariano with the Yankees.
yeah, to be fair, Choupo-Moting had an 18-goal season that shouldn't be overlooked and should be very much appreciated. It's the first time someone playing as the out-and-out striker has had a season that powerful since the Bradley Wright Phillips era. Don't be sad because it's over. Smile because it happened. So let's finish this one out. We've got the final category, the meme category, the unlikely legends, the red cows, as Michael Battista put it. I'm going to go first. The most obvious one, I would just love to get to say, it's Tom Barlow, man. The best TB in sports. Who's Tom Brady? Never heard of him. Tom Barlow. There's a reason people made shirts on the day that Messi came to Red Bull Arena. I came here to see the GOAT, Tom Barlow. Was he a great striker? Wasn't that great. Was he a starter out and out? Probably shouldn't have been the times he did. But he put a smile on his face. He worked hard, and every fan rooted for him every time he stepped out. That's hard to do, is to be like not that great of a player, but still find a way to warm everybody's heart every time he stepped on the field. Yeah, Tommy Barlow. Got to be the first guy in the unlikely legends category.
Yeah, I think I've talked more about Tom Barlow in my life than I have about Thierry Henry. I honest to God think that, like, if you ask me about the Red Bull I've talked about the most in my life, it is Tom Barlow. And it's just, he's just going to be, he's the Jay Buhner of the New York Red Bulls, in the sense that, like, how, like, the Seinfeld made Jay Buhner like a national icon, because how could you trade Jay Buhner? That was like the thing, and people, like, to this day will still rag on that, at least the old generation. I feel like Tom Barlow is that, for the same sort of reasons of, like, you are just never going to, if you were here for Tom Barlow, you are going to talk about Tom Barlow. He is unironically on the Mount Rushmore of just, do you remember this guy and just how much we hated him, but also when he scored, we loved it. He has like the third most playoff goals in Red Bull history.
Yeah, I have that. I have the whole list of that somewhere. I'll try to find that, but he is strangely high up on that list. Yes.
Yeah. Gosh, should I go second?
Yeah, number two. I think it starts to get hard, but I'm glad you had a couple prepared that I didn't even think of. So go.
So I'm going to save the one I have that's not on this list for later, but I'm going to go with a. I don't know if you knew. I'm surprised he was on your list. I'm going to say Ethan Cutler
Ethan Cutler.
because, and I have a personal reason for this because, um, because I cover the U.S. Open Cup and because I cover lower division soccer. Imagine my shock as I'm covering a amateur team in Seattle called Sharktopus FC,
He plays for
where
Sharktopus?
he plays for Sharktopus, and
No,
I've
know
interviewed
that.
him.
Oh, what a
I,
legend.
I interviewed him during like when I wrote my story for U.S. Soccer. I was
Wow.
like, "Why do I know your name?" And he goes, "Oh, I played for Red Bull." And I go, "You were at the first Open Cup game I ever went to, or the second Open Cup game I ever went to in 2018, where he helped at where he started against NYCFC at Red Bull Arena in the fourth round or in the third round, whatever it was." So
He had an assist
yeah,
that game. He was very
he
good
did
that
have
game.
he had an assist in that game, and he
Yeah.
also he only had 4 games with the New York Red Bulls. I will say I put him on there for personal reason of Hobie was just playing for Sharktopus FC, and I found him. I was like, what? What? Why are you what? And then you just look at like, oh yeah, just playing your debut is against David Villa. One of your best games of all time is against the Seattle Sounders, a team from a city which you are now playing amateur soccer in. It just is all this beautiful symmetry of like storytelling that I will always be like, okay, Ethan Cutler is one of the Red Bull. He is one of the Red Bull boys for me, even if he's just a guy that most people do not remember. And I will always love that.
You'll hear no arguments from me. The reason I have him on the list is not because I had a personal connection with him like you did, but if you'll notice, I had a list of random fullbacks that filled in between 2019 and 2021 because there was a revolving door, if you'll recall,
Yes.
in that time. So these aren't going to be my next picks, but guys like Jason Pendant, Mandela Egbo, Patrick Segrist, Reese Buckmaster, and Ethan Cutler all kind of filled the same category for me. So I figured I'd list all of them. For
Yeah.
my
And
third
and
pick,
real
yeah,
quick.
go, go,
And
go.
for people who don't know, if you don't know what Sharktopus is, it is a
Yes.
amateur team in Seattle who plays in a league called Seattle Rats, which is recreational adult team soccer. They have a team logo that is like the sci-fi logo. It's a Sharktopus. No one knows where the team came from. And they are just a bunch of dudes who play soccer, and it's very fun because I literally just saw them on a U.S. Open Cup qualifying list one day, and I
Exactly.
immediately messaged U.S. Soccer going, "I need to write this story right now." So they're a bunch of very cool dudes, and shout out Leo, their owner, who is actually from Jersey. So a lot of good connections there. If you ever need a good kit, go look them up.
Sharktopus FC, shout out Ethan Cutler. He's number two. For number three, I'm gonna go because I'm trying to keep it to players that were thought of positively, right? Like maybe they weren't the best. This player was pretty good, but were remembered for funny reasons more than they were necessarily for their play on the pitch. I'm gonna say Bouna Kandul here because Bouna was legitimately the starting goalkeeper for several seasons and was pretty good. He got called into the Senegalese national team during his time in MLS. But I think more people remember his famous catchphrase more than they do him ever making a single save, and that's "It's Boona time." And doing research for this episode, I didn't know that he originally said that when he was on the Rapids before he was on the Red Bulls. I thought that he said that when he came to the Red Bulls. Apparently he had been using it for a little while longer, which I think makes it even funnier that he's just like, "It's still Boona time." What a legend. I have a signature of him somewhere up in my house, Boona Kandul. My earliest Red Bulls memories, he's the goalkeeper pretty much. So
Mm.
it is a little personal for me in that regard. Don't remember him being more than like a slightly above average keeper in the league at the time, but he was absolutely a legend. And I think he's still somewhat involved. I think he coached at Monroe University. I think he grew up partially in the Bronx as well. So he's a local guy too. We have
He
all these
was
local
a
connections. Makes it more
he,
fun.
he was a New Amsterdam FC coach.
Wow. No way.
He was. And fun fact, shout out Empire SC. One of the when I'm as a member, I was able to take part in one of their charity auctions where I won a game used 2010 with the inaugural season patch Boona jersey with
That's beautiful.
yellow with the long arm pads right here.
Yeah.
I love that jersey. So yeah, Buna, I cannot like it's such a good shout for him to be on this
And
list.
I
It's not
think
that he's bad. It's not
no,
that
he's
he's
not.
bad. He's just a boy. He's just like one of the guys.
Exactly. And I think, I don't know if he still is, but I think at one point he was also the technical director for Asphalt Green. So, like, another club within New York
Yes.
City that he's an important factor for. So that's very, very, very cool that Bouna Kadul still has something of a footprint within the New York soccer scene. The fourth and final unlikely legend meme red cow player from the club's history. Michael, take it away.
All right. So there's two guys, neither of which are on your list that I'm between. Now, shout out Corey Burke, who blocked me on Instagram for calling him a glorified USL League One player. Shout out to Reese Buckmaster with me and my buddies literally telling Red Bull, look, if you just put something in the bull shop and just call it Reese's Bucks and make it a discount thing, it would work. Like you could have the jingle and it would be fine. Don't have red points, have Reese's Bucks. I swear to God, it'll work. And then we got kicked out. Then we nearly got kicked out of like, press for a little bit for that one. Shout out Wiki Carmona because he's the new Tom Barlow. He'll never be Tom Barlow, but he is pretty much Tom
Thing
Barlow at this point.
That's the thing with Wiki is like I have him on this list because he kind of fits the same description as Tom Barlow, like a guy that like fans were like, well, he shouldn't be playing, but he always is.
Yeah.
He's not exactly popular in a way that Tom Barlow
Yeah.
was. Not a lot of people are big fans of Wiki Carmona, unfortunately.
They are not. So I'm going to say that between the two guys I have in my head right now, um, I'm going are both lower league dependent, but they have New York Red Bulls roots. Um, I'm going to pick. Actually, wait. Let me see something real quick. Um, yeah, you know what? I'm going to go
Well, I
with
think I
the
know who one of
first.
them's going to be.
All right, why don't you take a guess?
Is Dilly Duco one of them?
You're so close. It's unreal. You are so
Metzger?
close. No. So the two guys in my head, the one who I'm going to leave off is Johnny Steele.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can't believe I didn't put him on the list. Yeah, it's a good one.
So I was going to because I saw him win the NPSL national title with the Miami FC2 at Drew
Nice.
University, and he, good stint, solid stint with the New York Red Bulls for a year. Very much a journeyman, very much Northern Ireland international player too.
Yeah.
So someone who just seemed to never have his foot in the right place, the right time, but definitely just a player. If you follow on Twitter or on Blue Sky, like just random baseball players, like there's like remember this guy, Johnny Steele is one of them. The guy who I'm going to go with is Sachi Hot.
I also did not have him on the list
I
either.
know because he only played a single game with the New York Red Bulls, and it was a U.S. Open Cup match against FC New York, the first ever homegrown player in New York Red Bulls history. Um, my reason for putting him is solely because uh, his time with FC Motown is
Town.
the reason
Yep.
why I am where I am with my career. U20 player, someone who just never broke into the professional mold as a professional player, but helped lead FC Motown to the 2018 national championship game, lost to Miami FC2, was not on the team, like didn't finish out with the team in 2022. Like he started the season with them in the Open Cup, was not able to finish the year with them as a head coach when they won the title, but he was in the stands for them. So someone who I just know as like a Red Bull player who I adore, and I think like he would be on my Mount Rushmore of like red cows as a positive.
Completes the list. I think that does. Tom Barlow, Bouna Kandul, Ethan Cutler, and Sashir Hatt for the unlikely legends for Red Bull New York / the Metrostars. So that is just about all the time we have for Empire Soccer Report this time around. I want to thank Michael Battista for jumping on the show. A great guest. You can always see him on Seeing Red, and of course on Twitter at Michael Battista and New York Sports Nation. Mike, thank you so much for jumping on, man.
Thanks, man. If anyone else wants to follow me, I'm on Blue Sky at Battista.bluesky. You can also read my stuff at Hudson River Blue. I don't talk Red Bulls there. I talk a lot of lower league. Sometimes I cross paths with James when I'm talking, APSL or CSL, stuff like that. But yeah, just please, it was a pleasure, James.
Yeah, one of the premier voices of the New York soccer scene, Michael Battista. Thank you so much for joining. This has been Empire Soccer Report. Thank you to everybody for listening and watching. Not sure when the next episode will be, but when there's big news coming out about Red Bull New York, you can be sure that we'll be talking about it on here. Thanks again to Michael Battista. I've been James Birle. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next time on Empire Soccer Report.